I'm writing Ruthless, Rabid, Raging, Ravenous, Rampaging, Remorseless, Repulsive, Revolting, Repugnant Zombies by Wilburn. And so we'll see what we can do with this. My goal is to have it be one long, ridiculous. Author Chuck Buddha. I know him. Welcome to the chat, Chuck. Alright, we left off with chapter 15, and we got a little ways into it, and that may be a good place to dive back in, if the story's to your liking, of course. And then we will see about adding another 2,500 words to this. So, we left off with the uniform was tied to a flexible pole that held the suited zombie up and in place. The spear was tied to his gray hands. The pole bent enough that the undead trap could lock onto Waldo, where he stared up in shock. Okay, that sentence is not working for me. Black Fox says Chuck Buddha makes me tingle. There you go. Must have read some of his books. The pole, let's say the suspension pole. See, I've already added one word and I haven't even made any progress yet. Let's do this, Armand says. It's getting busy over here, man. The suspension pole bent enough that the undead, I don't want to say undead monster, could lock onto Waldo, where he stared up from his knees in shock. All right, I'm gonna have to do some editing there because I can tell that paragraph doesn't flow as well as it needs to. But we'll. Chuck Buddha's here, Armand. Like a special occasion. He barred his right forearm up under the zombie's chin. Let's say, lifting the teeth away. All right. The creature had him in the side. Creature hit. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. There's no worse typo than one that's actually another word and then throws you off. Chuck Buddha, never heard of him. Oh, he's here. All right. The creature hit him in the side with the shaft of the long spear. Chuck Buddha's not the worst. I've met worse. Thank goodness its hands were free. The suspended monster snapped its jaws but ignored Waldo's gore-covered arm. More and more. This was beginning to look like his superpower. Sweat off his skin and slime oozing from the undead creature's throat swirled that gore around, but not enough for the monster to sniff through it. Waldo shoved one way and then rolled the other. Before he could get to his feet, he had to duck to keep that spear from clocking him in the back of the head. It did smack the man across the way on the shoulder. Okay. Zombie Corner with Wilburn. Alright, so again, they're on the back of a truck here. That's how this chapter began. A converted fire truck thing. I should probably mention that for people that just came in. On the shoulder. Okay. Before he could get to his feet, he had to duck to keep the spear from clocking him in the back of the head. Let's say the long weapon, did smack the guy across the way. On top of the converted fire truck. On the shoulder. There we go. So we should have people up to date here. Okay, Black Box is gone. I killed him. What's that? Black Box, sorry. That was confusing. I thought we were talking about the movie. I'd done a movie watch party with that earlier. That figure swung around on his flexible suspension pole with crossbow tied to his hands. The eyes of that creature sunk deep, dark into the bloated blue flesh of the thing's face and neck. Yummy. Waldo had to duck again and roll forward along the top of the truck, still speeding along with him. Could that thing shoot its loaded bolt? Waldo was afraid to find out. The other warriors across the top of the truck turned as well, revealing they were all reanimated corpses, posed in their gear. This was the trap, and Waldo found himself sprawled in the middle of it. A couple of the guys, apparently my first death toll in my story came, but it was a villain's death. Well, there you go. You mentioned that you thought people were killing off too many good guys and not enough bad guys in writing these days. I'm Teflon with Danny Volpe in my corner. Oh, Danny Volpe. Okay, I'd missed. I'm sorry, I'd missed. That was your tag there. I know all these people in real life. How very odd. All right, it's like being back together. It's like a convention, only cheaper. All right. There we go. A couple of the guys further along had their hands free. Waldo had to slap them away. So let's say the arms. Slap the arms away and dodge around as he advanced up the middle between them all. I'm using too many its here that make sense to me but might not make sense to all readers. He could have asked himself where he thought he was going, or better yet, he could have wondered where the men who set this trap wanted him to go. At the time, he was just trying to stay alive. One bobbling zombie pawed at Waldo's exposed side as the other leaned in teeth first with its hands tied to a double-bladed weapon, let's say, of some sort. Waldo kicked into the chest of the pawing zombie, which succeeded in rocking it backward, only to spring forward again on the pole, holding it up. Okay. The other he decided to take the risk. See, if I add enough of these in, I'll just make my goal today and won't even have to write a new chapter. He decided to take the risk of palming his gory right hand over its face as he used his other hand to take the handle of the weapon to keep it from swinging. The shaft of the spear might have hurt. Let's say smarted. Might have smarted, but these blades could end him. Alright. He felt the zombie's tongue and teeth against his hand, but like the ones before it, it did not bite down on the skin covered in drying zombie brains. Waldo had the chance to dodge forward again. What does smarted mean? Is it the same as hurt? It can be. I think it's technically slang. Kedman is from Sweden, so I'm not sure if that. I don't think that may not be used in all English-speaking countries, but when something smarts, it can be slang for it hurting. And I just wanted to use a different word besides hurting again, or stinging, or aching. Words that I'm having to use a lot in this story. He felt the zombie's tongue. Okay, I've already done that. Waldo had the chance to dodge forward again. Something fell. Let's say plummeted. Something plummeted toward him from above. And I'll spell that right with the help of the computer. Everybody will think I'm smarter than I am, except all of you watching here. Something plummeted toward him from above. He turned in time to see the falling body that had stepped off the top of a passing building. The falling zombie's head burst open on the railing and splattered everywhere as the decapitated body bounced away on the street behind them. Not all of that explosion of brains and bone hit Waldo, and I'll capitalize his name, but enough of it. He was thankful none of it got in his mouth. He was just starting to get the flavor of that zombie toe off his tongue. You'll have to go back and read the book to find out what that was about, I guess. The zombie to his side swung back up and tried to wrap up Waldo again. Waldo kicked it in the chest once more. Let's say feeling rib bones float apart under the flesh. and then dodged between the last pair of zombies hung up behind the cab. Let's say the cab of the truck. Good stuff. I only need one period there, though. I thought it would be enough to get just one drop of zombie fluid in your body to be infected. Well, it depends on the rules here. It's possible that he could already be infected, and then it's also possible that maybe he got away with it. He's getting beat up and scratched pretty bad, so all of this is putting him at threat, no matter what the rules of the apocalypse are. So keep that in mind as we go forward and see if that comes through. He staggered through their reach, but then skidded to a halt and fell to his butt to avoid being cut to pieces. Inches past his boots, a series of circular saw blades and a corkscrew grinder spun away, waiting to devour him if the zombie decoys failed. This was the end of the trap. The truck bounded over something, and Waldo scooted backward to avoid being pulled into the blades. More body parts spun up into the air and both sides of the truck from whatever it had just run through and over. Laughter lifted out from the cab. Waldo considered swinging around to have a go at the driver and swinging around on the side of the truck to have a go at the driver and passenger who had drawn him into this instead of just leaving him behind. This was their territory, though. Every inch of this truck was a death trap. He needed to leave them behind. I'll just leave it there. I don't like that sentence, but I'll probably revisit it in the editing. Above the spinning blades was a platform welded to the top of the cab. Waldo considered, let me make that past tense. Waldo considered that he might be able to jump and climb onto the thing, but then what? They might shoot him through the roof, or the platform might be a weighted hinge that would dump him straight into the blades. He wouldn't put that past the a-holes who invited him up here in the first place. Let's say the apocalypse was bad enough without a bunch of jerks trying to get you chewed up by zombies and saw blades as a joke. Alright. Okay. Instead of a-holes, you could use idiots. I could, but I am leaning a little more splatterpunk in here, so I'm throwing in those words on purpose. I could, but I don't think that's who Waldo is. Waldo rolled over and sighed before he ran back through the middle of all those suspended zombies waiting for him. He dodged hands, teeth, blades, and bludgeons as he made his way to the back of the speeding truck again. Jumping over some and rolling under others, he slapped and kicked away the threats. It was a damn shame that they were tied in place, or he'd already have them flipped over the railings into the street. Let's say probably. That's a superfluous word that doesn't necessarily need to be there, but I'm going to put it anyway. But these bad guys had set this whole thing up to foil any hope of winning here. Another bump in the road brought a severed... Another bump in the road, I don't need a comma there, brought a severed head looping and bouncing into his path. The eyes rolled and the jaws snapped with deadly threat. Waldo kept on moving and sidekicked the loose head off the truck into the next lane. There we go. All right, almost to the end of this. And then we'll pick up where we left off. Swinging around and over the back, he gave those monsters one last look. A few leaned back over the railing, and their faces and their face covers closed. Okay, I may have to revisit that because that could be confusing. The face covers, let's say, on their helmets, closed. I think that's clearer. Concealing the truth about this trap. Others still growled from open jaws as they leaned forward, trying to grab him well out of their reach. All right. You could play Waldo in a Netflix series from Jay Wilburn stories in the future. Maybe Jay has some suggestions. My suggestion is somebody much younger and athletic than me needs to play that part for sure. He climbed down the ladder and paused over the final step onto the street. The truck was really moving now. They didn't want him to get away, whatever they thought he was in, wherever he thought he was along their trap, let's say. Waldo eyed that weird diagonal run to get out from between the blades, and the blades, let's say, welded to the truck. Blades welded to the truck. And away, welded to the truck, and away, let's say, from all this insanity. It was going to be even worse trying to run cold from off the ladder. That must be part of the trap. That must have been part of the trap too. All right. He considered whether he might be able to jump clear of the razor wire bundle across the back of the vehicle. It didn't look good, even if he got enough height from a higher jump. He'd hurt himself badly on the landing. As usual, there are no good options. The rungs of the ladder dropped and folded into the truck. Waldo didn't have time to think about what was happening. His boots met street, and he broke into a full run to avoid being cut apart. He had a couple close calls, but was able to gauge his speed and move sideways enough to get clear of the truck's threats. Once he did, his balance came too far forward. He kicked his heels way back behind him as he tipped over and took a battering tumble. All right, let me fix the article there. All right. Over the curb, across a sidewalk, and I think sidewalk is a compound word. I just lost a word. And into a concrete parking stop. He groaned through his teeth and sat up slowly with the sting of several new skin places on his body. And Kedman, you mentioned that a drop of fluid might change him into a zombie, and here he has all these aches and pains and scratches and cuts and all this stuff on him from all the nonsense I'm putting him through. He would do well to avoid being splattered for a while. Too many breaks in his skin to get away with that much longer. All right, let me add something here, and it's maybe in response to what Kedman said, because other readers might have the same question. He wasn't, let's say, he'd seen plenty of, I'm going to do a new paragraph here. No, it's same paragraph because we're doing the same topic. He'd seen plenty of zombie movies. No, I am going to do a new paragraph. Most of these debates are usually internal, so I'm glad you guys are here to see me second guess myself over and over again. He'd seen plenty of zombie movies before the real thing shattered all the romance and everything people believed about the rules of these creatures. Alright. Every dude had a zombie plan. And almost all of them were terribly shocked at how badly those plans played out in real life. Say, even after all this time, Waldo had no idea how much fluid from a zombie it took to turn. Any bite would do it, of course, but he had no gauge on how much splatter might do the job too. It was best to avoid all of it, but life and the undead seldom cooperated. There we go. All right. He watched the truck recede into the distance. Waldo found himself on the bloody edge of an open parking area that extended out at least for an acre. All right, let me put another article in there. All right, cruising right along, painted across one bloody edge of the open parking area that extended out at least for an acre. No, I read two lines, sorry. Painted across one of the buildings on the far side of this massive lot was True Avenue Market Parking. A giant arrow, the color of dried blood, pointed attention to the next intersection that led to a multi-lane road ahead. Multi-lane road ahead, and no, I don't need a comma there. And a broad. Okay, let's spell some things right while we're here, just to be professional. And a broader highway cross street. Okay, I guess that's all I'm going to say there. All right, and a broader cross street. As he focused on the back of the truck approaching that intersection, the ladder popped back. The ladder rungs popped back out for the next victim that decided to accept the invitation to climb on board for a ride. Okay, as the truck turned wide to the right through that broad intersection beyond the parking lots, Waldo saw the full passenger side of the converted vehicle. Letters had been added and at least one had been marked out so that City Fire Truck now read Dead City Dire Truck. Let's have him. Waldo mumbled, "Clever." Let's say bloody drool. Dribbled, pinkish over his lip, over his, let's say, split lip, and off his chin. All right, I have him getting knocked around a little too much to not have some injuries there. The truck veered on the cross street to purposely plow over the top of a cluster of zombies angling toward the engine noise in one of the turn lanes. Let's say one of the turn lanes before the concrete median started. There we go. So that sets up some action later here. The passenger of the Dead City Dire Truck leaned out his high open window, still laughing. He extended his arm that also bore tattoos. Okay, let's add something else here. The guy wasn't quite as big as the driver. he had a thick, bushy beard. Well, let's not make it bushy. He has a thick beard down over his chest. His teeth shined mad white in the midst of all that dark hair. It looked like he brushed his beard religiously every day. He extended his arm that also bore tattoos and extended the middle finger from the end of that arm. The zombies came apart and ground under the wheels as the dire, let's say the turn lane zombies. The turn lane zombies came apart and ground under the wheels. Say spiked. Those wheels had spikes on them. The spiked wheels as the dire truck rolled on. Rolled on in its path of destruction. Okay, good stuff. Almost to the new section. Waldo just stared at the middle finger and the laughing bad guy. Let's say bearded bad guy. Of course, I'm not using the word bad guy, but you know, who went with it. He didn't even have the energy to return the universal. Let's say on his knees, drooling pink. Waldo. Hey, yo, thanks for being here. Purple Rider, thanks for coming. Alright, on his knees, drooling pink, Waldo didn't even have the energy to return the universal gesture. Thank you for the follow, Purple. I appreciate it so much. Then, one of the heads of those smashed zombies, let's say from the turn lane, from the, let's say, bloody turn lane, because they just ran over him. Bloody turn lane. One of those heads, let's say with the, I'm going to move the article over here and I'm going to reread the sentence. Still attached. Alright, I'm going to have to really work this sentence because I've made so many changes. It's turning into a mess. I'll be here for a bit, but might do a stream later. Sounds good. Alright, then one of the heads with exposed spine, with the exposed spine still attached. Let's say from among. Sounds good. Alright, attached from among those smashed zombies from the bloody turn lane. And that's where we added this bit here. Now that head spun up off the wheel and locked its teeth on the passenger's forearm. The laugh rose into a shrill scream. The guy beat the attached head against his door jamb. The zombie finally came free of the deep bite wound, but rolled across the dash inside and fell away from view into the lap of the driver. All right, let's say the passenger's middle finger stayed up the whole time. Let's say through the whole episode. Through the whole episode. Like it was cramped into place permanently. It was kind of like when Waldo's mother said if he kept making nasty faces, then one day his face might stick that way. Maybe he should have listened to his mother more. We should all listen to our mothers more, don't you think? Alright. Armand always looking for fellow writers. He's a streamer on here too. Great writer in normal life and does good stuff on stream as well. Armand streams 3 days a week. I normally stream 3 days a week, but I've been doing every day for a while. In fact, I'm probably coming up on 50 days straight streaming here soon, because I streamed all the way through October too. I'm not normally going to do that. That's not something I can sustain forever. But it's special occasions, NaNoWriMo, and October being about horror movies and all that. Okay. Now they both screamed loud enough for Waldo to hear all the way from where he sat watching the scene play out before him. Alright, now we need Waldo to say something nasty to them, because he, F you both. He muttered as he wiped his chin off on one shredded sleeve. His shirt got the worst of it. Let's follow like a flock of confused chickens. Alright. He bounded over. No, here we go. F you both. He muttered as he wiped off his chin on his shredded sleeve. Hope it hurts. Waldo is in a bad mood. He does not like being treated like that. I followed Chuck Buddha because he's dreamy. Oh. I can't argue that. Why would I want to? Chuck Buddha is dreamy. I think I'm about to have the sun come between my blinds and onto my camera lens. So if I suddenly flare up like an angel, that's what's going on. I'll have to move those around. Back on full piece, my man. Oh, when I woke up this morning, I never suspected that I'd have people fighting over Chuck Buddha in my chat, but I should have. I should have seen that coming. The dire truck swerved wild from side to side. It bounded over the median, bounded over the median. Blades tore through stone and sent broken concrete flying in huge slabs. Now I gotta write new words. I can't just keep adding to what's already there. It pays to be famous and loved. I'll just take rich. I don't need to be famous. I'm not selfish. Okay, put a beard on the guy. Alright. Waldo imagined a drover. Apparently this guy's hauling food. Here, I'm getting angelic. Let me slide my camera just a bit. I have to figure out something to do with that. I got blinds everywhere except that one slash that's trying to come through. Alright. Not important though. No one cares about that. It's a biting snakehead. It's getting crazy in chat. Alright. Waldo imagined a driver losing control because of a bee flying through the window. A severed zombie head chewing on your arm and your lap was worse than any B. Alright, hold on. Let me see if I can go the other direction. Alright. The magic of technology as I slide my camera back and forth to avoid slashes of sunlight. Alright. A severed zombie chewing on a severed zombie head chewing on your arm and your lap was far worse than any B. Why wouldn't they roll up their windows if they're splattering zombies all over the street through the city? And you dub. That's not weird. Ooh, chat's getting busy. I'm having to work to follow there. As long as you guys are having fun. All over the street through the city. Okay, now let's go here. The dire truck. Swerved again. But too late to avoid the walls of glass windows along the base of one of the taller buildings across the highway. All the shiny weapons on the truck ripped through that glass in spectacular fashion. Jay, you haven't used the word fluid in a while. Can you please correct that? It's been a few paragraphs. Thanks, man. It's funny when you're trying to write 50,000 words of a zombie action scene. You start like, I find myself irritating myself with words that I keep repeating. Like you can only use viscera so many times. You can only use splatter so many times. You can only use zombie so many times. So I'm alternating as much as I can, but it just goes everywhere. All the shiny weapons on the truck ripped through the glass in spectacular fashion. And sheared through metal supports as well. The screaming sounds of bending steel gave way to another explosive impact with concrete. As that dust went everywhere. I'm going to make that a new paragraph then. Ooh, Chuck has found the emojis. This could go anywhere. And as you guys have probably seen, when you use an emoji, it bounces around my screen. So feel free to experiment with that. All right. As that dust went everywhere, the truck careened across all the lanes again. It disappeared from Waldo's view as the flowers for the zombie lives. What have we found? Oh, Armand has found the emotes. There's no telling what could happen now. Have a regular party going here. All right, it disappeared from Waldo's view. Let me put view in there, otherwise this entire story stops making sense. Disappeared from Waldo's view. That fish head is actually Frank Edler's favorite emoji, so good job. You guys may be kindred spirits. Disappeared from Waldo's view as the buildings concealed the death throes. Uh-oh. How do you spell throws when it's death throes? Death throes. I think that's right. Ooh, an octopus. Goodness gracious. You had to put some work into that one. It all came apart as you're flying around the screen. It disappeared from Waldo's view as the buildings concealed the death throes of the dire truck. But the rending, crashing sounds of it destroying the ground floors continued. All right. Sliced up like zombie sushi. Daniel's never going to use the fish head again because he wants to differentiate himself from Frank Edler, obviously. Thank you, Kedman. Appreciate it. All right. Sounds of it destroying the ground floors continued. Waldo got one weary leg under him. He held his knee, and he stood slowly as he braced his lower back. This sequence of getting to his feet reminded him of his old uncles climbing out of easy chairs during the holidays. The rumbling sounds brought him out of his memories. The rumbling sounds brought him out of his memories as he looked up in time to see the front of the damaged building coming down. Showers of shattered glass cascaded like a waterfall, catching all the light of the sun at every jagged angle. It was almost beautiful. Beautiful. It was almost beautiful. Then the dull, dusty chalk of crumbling stone followed, and a thick dust cloud like a living thing boiled its way over the parking lot. Waldo covered his face with his cleanest arm waited for the storm to pass. It never really passed. It never really ended. But it did dissipate enough for him to see more than a few feet in front of him. Alright. The Continuing Adventures of Waldo. Thank you for being here, Tom. I appreciate it. First time I imagined the character Waldo and in her picture of Pee Wee Herman popped up. Hey, it may be. I gave him sort of a nerdy name on purpose. No offense to any Waldos out there. Obviously, this guy is a true action hero. He's redeeming the name. It never really ended, but it did dissipate enough for him to see more than a few feet in front of him. The powder that probably filled his lungs like some sort of mining disease. Also, caked to the gore, and the bloody scratches over his body. He almost looked like a gray-skinned zombie himself, except for the red and black coating over his right arm. That stuff never seemed to come off. Alright. Even as the collapses and rumbles continued down the highway, Waldo could hear the growls of the undead behind him. He didn't want to look, but he did anyway. So many of them. Like all the running he had done today had gotten him exactly nowhere. All this noise just gave every zombie for blocks a direction to hone in on. And here they all were. Now let me make that a new paragraph by itself. And here they all were. Waldo spied zombies missing arms from earlier encounters. A few had open chests that showed inflating lungs on both sides of black dead hearts. And others covered in all sorts of dirt and filth from wherever they had been hiding or traveling. They filled the street, poured out of openings in buildings. Let's say in and between buildings. And the vast parking lot for the market across the way started to fill. No choice but to go forward, to continue forward. There hardly ever was. So that's oh my goodness, why am I starting new sentences? So that's the way he limped. Alright, we're moving right along today. Tom wrote a bit earlier today, but my main writing will be later. Still got a good 1,500 words in so far. Good job. That is one aspect of NaNoWriMo. Most of us can't just focus on one thing. We got other projects going on, or other things that demand even some writing time. So a lot of people get in a lot of words, but are only counting so many for NaNoWriMo. I know Armand is doing a lot of that, working on numerous things. I got other things going too, although I've put off a lot more than I've finished this month, as I've sort of focused on this and then other little necessities as we went. No choice but to continue forward. So let me fix that, and then we'll continue forward, just like Waldo has to. Because there is no choice but to continue forward. Okay, we tore off the front of the building. Out of sight. Buildings collapsed. Dust cloud swept over. Growls rise. Alright, I may be breaking a chapter here, but then I'll continue on. How long is chapter 15? Pretty long, so this will be a good break. Alright. As he reached the intersection, the options got even more narrow. It's probably narrower, but I'm going to use more. Alright, so that is chapter 16 we're starting. What happens next? I don't know. You'll have to wait 2 seconds to find out. Okay. Okay, not sure what's going on here. So let's align that and hit another enter, and now we're ready to start another chapter. You had to wait more than a few seconds. Revising an anthology in the mornings and poking at Nano in the evenings. See, this is our problem. We need to get credit for all that writing. Imagine how fast you'd be at 50,000 words if every word you had to write counted. And then if you count Facebook posts and tweets and stuff, some writers make 50,000 words in a week. Just nothing they can sell. The building. Alright, Armand says, boom, book 2 is done. Going to early dinner with the in-laws, and then we'll jump back into book 3 tonight. Alright, Armand, who wisely decided to write 2 books in a series at the same time, has learned his lesson, and he's finished book 2, and now he's going to focus on only book 3, which is what he's counting toward NaNoWriMo. So very proud of you, Armand, if for no other reason than learning your lesson. 47K done so far this month. Wow. And that's on everything, I guess, but good job. All right. Let's say the collapsed building across the highway on one side, and the mass of bodies funneling up every lane of the road. Alright, hoping to break 30k tonight. Good job, Tom. The collapse building across the highway on one side and the mass of bodies funneling up every lane on the other forced Waldo to move between and in the direction that the arrows in the parking area pointed him. Looks like I'm going to the market. Going to the market, he huffed as he jogged along. Alright. I hope they have something in my size. Alright. Waldo, trying to be clever in the middle of a zombie apocalypse. Exactly what you want from a character. Alright. Force down the center. It proved to be a wide boulevard with more buildings like the ones the dire truck had brought down from all its swerving. Okay. Cute little shops. Rolled by, let's say rolled slowly by on both sides as Waldo continued his run for his life down the center. Alright. Each one looked as if all it needed was a... Yeah, let me do a new paragraph here, sorry. Each one looked as if all it needed was the power turned back on and a few customers. Waldo could not recall at what time of day in this time zone that the zombies had risen. Say that the dead had risen. Maybe the shops had been closed and no people over here meant no zombies or destruction. Say the dire truck and those two idiots. Missed a real opportunity to make their mark here. Alright, Jay, feel free to skip my nano tonight since I won't be adding to it until later. Alright, I won't call you out, Armand. Alright. Looked like a few people hadn't updated yet as last time I looked, so that's alright. The dire truck and those two idiots missed a real opportunity to make their mark here. Waldo was surprised no looters in those first few fateful hours when the world changed forever. Waldo was surprised no looters in those first few fateful hours when the world changed forever found their way here. Nothing useful for an apocalypse, except maybe a few of the clothes or shoes. But usefulness had played little part. In all the thefts that had happened when society really did fall. This street had avoided all that awfulness from the zombies. As the growls echoed behind him off the high buildings, high structures on both sides, Waldo said, "Well, looks like I'm going to change all of that in a hurry." He thought about that young girl he had seen in the zombie-infested apartment building earlier. She had called him names and said he was leading all the zombies to her. That was hard to argue against with the noisy parade. Alright, let me fix noisy. With the noisy parade behind him now. Waldo turned and walked backward a few steps. The mob stretched shoulder to shoulder all the way across every lane. Hold on just a second, I need to... Alright. Sorry about that. I wanted to see where I was in my notes, so I made sure I was following everything. The mob stretched shoulder to shoulder all the way across every lane. The parking on both sides. The really wide sidewalks. And they squeaked against the glass of the shops on both sides. Alright, let me New paragraph, thousands of them. Maybe 10,000. Once they all got stuffed into this funnel of the marketplace. Where the F did you all come from? He yelled back at them. His voice was almost lost in the din of their mindless noise. But they all growled a little louder in response to his question. It was almost too much for his ears to take. He turned forward and picked up speed a little. Who knew? He might still go on living a while longer, just out of habit. Further ahead, well, let's make it, it's an A, because we're talking about distance and not quality. Farther ahead, a few of those fancy glass doors of the expensive shops stood chalked open. Okay. Chalked open. Looked like there were a few people at work when the zombies rose. Waldo didn't like those open doors one bit. And sure enough, a few undead patrons shambled out ahead of him on both sides. He picked up the pace a little more and felt the day's exertions catching up with him. Alright, let's save that so far. Let's spell exertions correctly. Not excursions, come on. Exertions. There we go. Alright, catching up with him. Alright. Chains. Put a question mark. The ones coming out of the open shops and from alcoves between them appeared to be dragging chains. Waldo looked for shackles, but saw none. Okay, that doesn't require a comma. Let me fix that. He's looking for shackles, but saw none. He scanned them to see if the chains wrap their bodies, but none of them appeared to have the links looped around them at all. They just seemed to be dragging chains behind them. Waldo didn't like that either, but he lacked time or energy to think about it much. The wall of deadly monsters behind him pressed ever onward. So he needed to leave this wealthy shopping district with all its undead far behind. He wished he knew this part of the city better, so he'd have some idea how to get out of here and then completely out of the city after that. Okay. The chains went through their bodies. Across each of their chests, a welded bar on the ends of the chains. On the end of the chains held the metal links to them, where, okay, let me make that 2 words and spell it correctly. Held the metal links to them where the chains had been fed through the zombies' bodies. Say the zombies' torsos. Zombies' torsos. And on purpose. Waldo was about to ask out loud who would do such a thing. Many people were crazy enough especially these days, but who would take the risk and bother with it? Before he spoke, he thought of the dire truck and figured he had his answer. Those two, and maybe others with them, had been busy in this part of the city. Maybe Waldo, alright, rolling up, maybe Waldo needed to be away from this part of the city as fast as he could, for reasons bigger than just the undead threat. Going as fast as I can, he said to himself. Okay. When the chains pulled out taut, the zombies, let's say the confined, the leashed zombies, leaned out on their bars and reached for Waldo. He weaved and dodged around as he eyed the stone columns. As he eyed the stone columns inside and beside the stores, where those long chains were attached. Those guys had been super busy and were obviously stone cold crazy. Okay, as best he could, he used his right arm to shove those creatures out of his way enough to proceed. He counted on them, ignoring the filthy arm, the way the others had today. His luck held out on that point for a little while longer. Alright. What happens next? Okay, we got them at the end of their chains. Getting just past the reach radius of the last chained zombies in this gauntlet, in this strange gauntlet, Waldo pulled up short. What the living hell? What the living hell he breathed out. All right. We're getting there, folks. Hold up short. Okay. Behind him, the mob overtook the first chained zombies. They swept the connected creatures along. First, the chains looped up over the rows of heads. I'll say the rows of bodies. But then the chains got stamped under. And pulled down by all those dead feet. Okay, let's say the zombies on the ends went for a ride. They lifted into the air and flew along on the ends of their chains. But then slammed into the ground, where they were trampled. Alright, they lifted into the air and flew along on the ends of their chains, but then slammed into the ground, where they were trampled over and over again by the endless flood of walking corpses. All right. Okay. A few of the chained... Okay, let me make that a new paragraph. And then we're going to leave these guys behind and see what Waldo was looking at. A few of the chained zombies tore free of their bonds, but after those welded bars ripped through their bones and flesh, there wasn't much left to hold them up. To keep going. All right. All right, dude. continuing on. Okay, trapped over, torn free. Waldo still didn't move at first. All right, Purple, you gotta give all that self-advertising a rest here in a minute, okay? Waldo still didn't move at first. Waldo still didn't move at first. But in the back of his mind, he knew he'd have to break free of his shock and keep going no matter what horrors lay ahead. But this was beyond anything he had seen before. Okay. As the street split, zombies hung chained to walls. A few were suspended upside down. Gotta run. Been fun. See you all tomorrow here. See you, Armand. Have a good dinner, man. A few were suspended upside down, but didn't act as if they noticed. Still chomping their jaws, inviting Waldo to keep walking, please. All right. Stakes hammered down into the asphalt. At various junctures. Sported zombies on chains, on shorter chains. I'll say shorter harnesses. We'll not do chains this time. Shorter harnesses. Stakes hammered down into the asphalt at various junctures sported zombies on shorter harnesses and flexible poles. These looked very much like the figures on the top of that truck. He knew these were probably the same guys, but the scale was shocking. There had to be far more than two of them. There had to be far more than two of them. And they had all been very busy with this game of setting zombie traps. Okay, we're real close to where I'm going to stop for my goal today. Waldo had broken the lock on his brains and feet to get moving again. Then a few more creatures. A few more creatures on cords swung back and forth through and over the street in pendulum fashion. Alright, so it's getting weird here. Pendulum fashion. As if that weren't too much, others dropped down from beams high above. They lifted and fell over and over on the ends of springs that gave shimmering sounds, much how Waldo would imagine giant slinkies. I believe that's supposed to be capitalized because it is a name brand, so we'll do that just out of respect. Okay. Waldo would imagine. Okay, how far into chapter 16 am I? Not terribly far. Alright. I need to break a chapter here eventually. Waldo took a deep breath and accepted the challenge, knowing he was making a terrible mistake. Through all those swinging, springing, and swiveling undead, he pressed forward and cut a path through them. Alright. When you decide to do a new paragraph, is it mainly pacing reasons? Well, partly. There's a few factors that go in. As a general rule, shorter paragraphs are better than longer paragraphs in fiction. There's a little more flexibility in nonfiction, and there are differences in what's happening in the scene. So action scenes in particular, or horror scenes, or anything where the intensity is rising, a lot of times clipped short paragraphs, even phrases or short sentences, incomplete sentences even, can create the feel you want in addition to the words themselves. Then more broadly, I still follow sort of the basic rules of paragraphs. I mean, of course, you can break paragraphs anywhere, but that idea of moving to a different idea. So even though technically all this stuff is happening on the same street, and really the moment that he sees these, springing, swinging zombie traps of all kinds. Technically, I could argue making that all one paragraph would work, which might be fine. But for reader's sake, it's better to break it. And in a sense, I can find sort of micro ideas that go into each one. So I have a short paragraph here that's only 2 sentences that is sort of him kind of breaking out of his trance of seeing these folks. I probably should use the word trance up here somewhere. Break free of his shock. Let's say shocked trance. All right. I didn't want to leave that word while it was in my head. All right. And then here the street splits and he sees them. Now, technically that would fit fine into this next one. But then I described sort of the stakes that are in the ground. Then we get to him coming free of all this and deciding to move forward, and then kind of moving into the middle of all that. So even though that could be 1 or 2 paragraphs technically on the same idea, breaking it down into the smaller ideas that still seem like natural breaks is probably better to keep the reading going. But a lot of times I've heard of really good authors, not just anybody who feels like doing it, that they change their paragraphs specifically for how it looks. So even in the middle of all this, I got some variety in length a little bit. Even all this might be too patterned for them. And so they might change up how the paragraphs are connected together, not based on what the ideas are, but based on how they look on the page. So they might want, several quick ones in the middle or one big one nearby to kind of break up the rhythm. And so for a lot of people, breaking paragraphs, even in prose, has more to do with poetry and the visual than it does necessarily the ideas themselves. I used to have much longer paragraphs, and I've started breaking them more into smaller pieces, mainly because I was writing some serials and some things like that where people are reading them on particular devices, and it just benefited to have much shorter paragraphs. And so I've kind of developed a habit of that, which lends itself well to this but might not be the best for other things. So beyond just the actual reasons I have, sometimes I just get into a habit where I'm doing shorter pieces and stuff like that, but there's other times where I like a good long paragraph that's talking about one thing and kind of sticks with it. Ultimately, if there's one thing in writing that doesn't have the most solid rules, it's when you break a paragraph. So for me, the main things here are pacing, in the sense of just shorter paragraphs to keep it moving and to keep the reader's eye from getting tired. But then also kind of breaking smaller ideas apart so that there's still some continuity between paragraphs as we go. I think of paragraphs as beat, changing from character to the setting to another character, snapping it along. Yes, and this story is a little different in the sense that there's one character. So like if I were describing action between a couple characters, that would be the proper place to break it. You break it every time you have dialogue. So anytime there's a spoken piece, especially between two characters, it's best to break all of those into their own paragraphs as you go. I see paragraphs as a way to make it easier to follow the text. That's true too. And Daniel Volpe, a great writer. I got to go. Thanks for the tips and fun, Jay. Best of luck. I appreciate you being here, Daniel. That does mean a lot. Now, I'm going to be heading out here pretty soon because I'm at 32,545, but I'm going to update my NaNoWriMo here on screen, and then we're going to take a look at a few other folks. So one more quick look because I've already forgotten how many I had. 32,545. So let's update to 32,545. And I'm very happy with that. I'm on pace. I'm going to finish in 20 days. So update my progress on Ruthless, Rabid, Raging, Ravenous, Rampaging, Remorseless, Repulsive, Revolting Zombies. That is a title for the ages. And we're going to start looking at a couple other folks. I know a few people haven't updated, so we're going to not bother them too much. I can see that Ryan J. Pelton has updated. So we're going to pull him up. And those of you watching, if you're doing NaNoWriMo and you want to be my buddy on on the official NaNoWriMo site. Just give me an invite. I'm Jay Wilburn on there, same as on here. And I'll buddy up with you. And if you're interested in me including you in these updates to see how you're doing progress on screen, then let me know. I only show my buddies who want to be seen or allow me to see them. And Ryan is at 32,980, and he writes at night, so that is actually yesterday's total. So very good job, Ryan. We are proud of you and the quick progress that you are making. You're going to make short work of your story there. Let's take a look at Tom Duffy. I know that he's doing some more writing. He's already said here on stream, but we'll look at where he is now. The Light Fantastic, which the more I see that title, the more I want to read the book. He's at 28,274, and he's got some more coming on tonight. So if you're still on, Tom, very good job. And like I said, when that story comes out, I'm going to try to be one of the first few to buy it. Armand Rosamilia is going to be doing some more work tonight. Oscar Jones. Oscar, who's writing Demons and Disaster, which is a fantasy novel, not specifically a horror novel, he says here, is at 26,739 words. So very good job, Oscar. And I'll keep track of your progress as we go as well. Let's see who else. All right, a few folks I want to give a little more time. Sure, I'll send an invite. Sounds good. Sounds good. And if you don't mind being on screen, let me know. If you do, I will not bother you. Alex from Iowa. I don't remember exactly where he was last time we checked, but want to give him a shout out. Alex from Iowa is writing Curse of the Blood Moon, which is also a great title. He's at 14,619 words, and I'm sure work and life and everything else is kind of getting in the way, but every time he writes, he still puts down a few thousand more words, and that is how you get a story done. So very good job, Alex. Looking forward to see what that title becomes as well. All right, a couple more folks. I know Bill Fisher is doing some more writing today, so we'll check in on him later. J.C. Walsh has done some writing recently, so he's updated since last time I checked. Again, life and work kind of getting in the way, but he's working on 2 different novellas that are actually going to, they're 30,000 words each, so he's actually working towards 60,000 when he's done. He's at 5,716, and that's about 1,000 or so words jump since last time he updated, so very good job. Appreciate your hard work, JC, and the stuff he writes is great. Death's Highway, I believe, is the name of his debut novel, which was very good, and he's done some other writing and stuff as well. He dabbles in extreme horror, but a lot of cosmic horror, and I like what he does and how he blends those things. All right, Kedman. I can't remember where he was at last time we checked. There he is. He's already been an update. I can see the jump there. All right, so Kedman from Sweden is writing Universe Behind Dark Eyes, a science fiction, and he's at 3,215. Now, to be fair, he only joined his time maybe like 2 days ago, like 4 a.m. his time. He was watching me at 3:15 or so my time, and he joined. Essentially, this would be a second day, but first day he did over 2,000 words, and now he's at 3,215, and he's already said that he usually shoots for about 1,000 words, and like most of us, he doesn't always achieve that every day. He doesn't achieve the goal every day, but in the last couple days, he's really exceeded that goal, not just in average, but day to day as well. So excellent job, Kedman, and I hope this is helping motivate you some with your writing. And even if you don't keep up that pace every day, if you just keep going, I think you're going to do a great job, and looking forward to seeing some of the stuff you create as well.